Fight!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Fighting with Numbers. This is episode 42 of the podcast, which, if you're keeping track, good, because I haven't been very well because I didn't even put this in my notes. But I realized right before hitting record, this is technically the 1 year anniversary of the podcast. Technically, it would be next week, but there's no UFC next week, so I won't be doing a podcast next week. Production note. But with that said, this kind of marks the 1 year anniversary, a full fight year calendar of doing fights, of running predictions, of growing the model also and evolving the model. Because if you listened to last year, things have changed since this year. But this year's been new. It's been different. But one full fight calendar year we have completed here on the podcast, Fighting with Numbers. We are officially 1 year old. Everyone clap your hands, applaud. If you're driving around, don't applaud. Keep your hands on the steering wheel, 10 and 2 at all times. But if you're watching on YouTube, give me a round of applause real quick. Thank you, those that have started this podcast with me, and day one, maybe a couple of you were here. Maybe some of you have left since then, but maybe I've gotten better and hopefully have garnered new listeners, subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, hit subscribe in your podcast feed, on your YouTube feed, wherever you're watching or listening. Thank you if you do. Thank you if you don't, because either way, you're listening right now, and I appreciate that. And hey, I like those analytics. So with that said, episode 42, Fighting with Numbers. We are previewing UFC Vegas 117, Arnold Allen versus Melky Costa. But let's talk about last week, UFC 328. That was a pretty great card, I gotta say, from a fight standpoint, because the model, it did okay. The model went 4-5 overall. Not a great week on predictions, but here's where it matters, right? We don't expect the predictions to go 100% because there's spots we're avoiding anyways. So 4-5 isn't actually all that bad. We hit most of the ones we wanted. The actual bets that I ended up placing, 2-1, that's a profit. Can't go broke, making a profit. Teeny tiny profit, but we made a profit nonetheless. It was the live dog that we couldn't get to come home. Once again, we couldn't get that dog to come home. Waldo Cortez Acosta couldn't get it done. I will say Volkov fought a very smart fight and avoided the chaos that Waldo was trying to create. Just didn't work out for us. Another dog does not come home, which is becoming a little bit of a theme over the last few weeks. If you're keeping up, I'm sure you are. But the discipline of selecting those dogs, it's still the right spot. It's still keeping us green in the bankroll side, right? So overall, the model now sits 55, 30, and 4 on the year. That puts us at 64.7%. We've been hovering in that 65% range as the regression has kind of fully started to settle in. This is where we were last year too. This is where we finished last year as well. We will ebb and flow up and down, but this is kind of where we always end up finishing. It's the sport kind of finding its equilibrium. Equilibrium, by the way, good movie. Old movie, Christian Bale. Check it out. Anyways, we keep grinding here on the model anyways. As I mentioned, this week, we're back at the Apex. It's going to be a little bit of a smaller card, lean slate. You know how these Apex cards go for the model. And then the UFC takes a week off after this. So, as will I. I'm heading out of town, actually. Vegas is getting hot a little too early. I'm going to go on a little vacation. So consider this a breather before we ramp back up 2 weeks later. Only a couple fights on the breakdown today. It'll be a quick episode. And yes, obviously, I know, I'm not avoiding it. Ronda Rousey is fighting Gina Carano this weekend. That's a fight that's actually happening here in the year 2026. I'll get to that. It won't be a very numeric comparison, a numbers breakdown, but, I can't avoid the fact that this fight exists. It is a big event. And I'm sure you didn't forget, but I will remind you anyway. I am Rob Moreno, a.k.a. Bobby Knuckles, a.k.a. The Robbio. Find me across all social medias at The Robbio. And your full model data, season dashboard, tails of the tape, number breakdown. It is bam right there at fightingwithnumbers.com. Look at it. It's so pretty. I've provided so many nice colors for you guys to look. I'm sorry if you're colorblind. Shout out. I have a really good friend. He's colorblind. He probably doesn't appreciate the website as much as most of you can and do. But you can see on the season dashboard, we're still rocking and rolling. Tier 1 favorites are hitting at 21-6, 77%. That's what you want out of your favorites. You want them to hit at a high clip because the juice is there. So you got to find a way to make a profit. That's why we're hitting those and avoiding the tier 5. If you look, tier 5, 16 and 13, 55% on tier 5s. You don't want 55% if you're only betting favorites. So we've been avoiding those pretty nicely. We didn't come home with Hamzat Chimaev last week as an elite favorite, but that fight had all sorts of surprises. Shout out to Sean Strickland, who seems, at least in the cage, he seems to be evolving. I'm not quite sure he's actually evolved outside of it. But tier 1 live dogs, 8-5, 61%. As I've said, they've been ticking down a little bit, but hopefully that levels out. Hopefully we continue to make a profit out of those. Either way, 61% on plus money dogs is a profitable situation. Dead dogs, the ones we've avoided, they are 5-4, 55%. Technically, you'd be in the profit because they're all plus money, but that one's teetering near not profitable. So most likely, these should level out if we just continue to listen to the model. Now, what do you say we get into UFC Vegas 117? Let's go. Let's start here. Down on the prelim card. Alice Ardelean versus Polyana Viana. This one's pretty straightforward once you run the numbers, let me tell you. Alice Ardelean's riding a 2-fight win streak, most recently a decision win over Montserrat Conejo Ruiz, which a lot of fighters get a win over her, but this one was back in November. She's 2-2 now in the UFC overall. She went on a 2-fight losing streak, now on a 2-fight winning streak. So the record isn't exactly flashy, but the recent form is trending in the right direction, and the underlying numbers tell a more promising story, but we'll get to that. Across from her is Polyana Viana, who is on a 3-fight losing streak, and she sits 4-7 overall in the UFC. It has been a roller coaster for her. This has not been a successful UFC run for Viana by any measure, if I'm being honest. Polyana does hold a 5-inch reach advantage at 67 inches, a physical edge that could theoretically matter, and she's shown finishing ability. 1 knockout, 3 submissions in the UFC. The submission game is always a live threat for her, but the numbers paint a very clear picture, as we can see here, which, by the way, these tail of the tapes, these stat breakdowns, you can see at fightingwithnumbers.com. I will continue to push that. By the way, do you guys like dark or light? That's too bright. It feels like that might be too bright. We're going to go dark, at least for the podcast. We'll go dark. Let's go dark. XR percentages. Let's hit that. Alice, 73% XR percentage. Viana is down at 45%. She's now losing more rounds than she's involved in. That's how you end up with the 4-7 type of record. That gap is significant. Alice wins rounds consistently. Viana is losing them, unfortunately, at an alarming rate now. The striking, kind of completely one-sided. Alice lands 7.35 significant strikes per minute. That's pretty good, with a positive 2.15 differential. Also good. And she's going to be spending 85% of her time at distance. She is a striker through and through. She does absorb a fair share of punches. She absorbs 5.20 significant strikes per minute, but she is dishing out far more than she's taking, so that's a positive. But is there a concern in the striking side from Polyana if you're absorbing that many shots? Well, Viana lands just 2.74 significant strikes per minute with a tiny 0.24 differential. Low output. She's not winning exchanges in volume. And with that kind of output, she needs to get this fight to the ground to have any path to victory, right? As I've mentioned many, many, many times, if your striking is lower, if you're averaging less than 3 significant strikes landed per minute, I hope you do something else very, very well. The problem is I don't know if she does. So, for example, Alice holds an 87% control rate in clinch and ground time. Viana sits at just 13%. Alice defends takedowns at 86%. Viana has spent 51% of her ground time being controlled and only defends takedowns at a 35% takedown defense rate. This is a mismatch on paper. It 100% tells me that Alice can dictate the fight's location. If she wants to keep it standing, she will. If she wants to take it to the ground, she can. Of course, there's a submission threat from Polyana. She does have 9 submission attempts in her game. But as I said, I think Alice can dictate this fight. The model totally agrees. Lands on Alice Ardelean, 70.38% win probability. Now, she lands as a tier 2 favorite. That is actually our first one of the year. It is a small window to land there, but she hit the spot. Her money line is currently sitting at around minus 200. Gives us a small but decent edge over what the model is projecting. You know, on a lean card, we're being selective here. Alice just kind of makes sense to find a way to put it on our betting slip. And if you want to shorten the price, Alice by decision is currently at around -115. It seems like the most likely path. It's the cleaner prop play. This fight almost certainly does end up on the judges' scorecards. I just don't see Viana being active enough in the fight to get a win. So I'm leaning Alice Ardelean here. I don't hate the money line at -200 on a very selective fight card, but I understand your bankroll must do what it needs to do. -115 would be the safer play for a decision. Let's hit the co-main event now. Welcome back to the Octagon. Do Ho Choi, the Korean Superboy, had a rough introduction to the UFC, a 3-fight losing streak from 2016 to 2019. That included some brutal moments. He stepped away for a while, dealing with injuries, military service obligations. But when he came back in 2023, he picked up a draw, then back-to-back TKO wins. Most recently, knocking out Nate Landwehr in December of 2024. I guess not that recent, but it is his most recent fight. That fight was over a year ago. He's been away again due to knee injuries, apparently. So now he returns. He is back. Across from him is Daniel Santos on a 4-fight win streak, most recently a TKO over Ju Sang Yo back in October. He's active, he's hungry, and he's been building momentum. Choi will hold a 3-inch reach advantage at 70 inches, and the XR percentages are relatively close. Choi, 64%, Santos, 59%. Neither number is alarming, neither is elite either. The striking is the first place there's a gap. It's the first time the gap shows up. Choi lands 4.67 significant strikes per minute with a positive 0.65 differential. Solid. Santos lands nearly the same volume at 4.76 per minute, but he carries a negative 0.27 differential. He's absorbing more than he's landing in exchanges, and that's always dangerous. That's the difference between these two in the stand-up game. The grappling tilts firmly towards Santos as well. He holds an 84% control rate in clinch and ground time compared to Choi's only 52%. Santos is also the more active takedown threat as well. 12 scored, 4.14 takedown attempts per 5 minutes, and he holds a 73% takedown defense. Choi is at 52% control and would be better served keeping this one off the feet if he can. There's not too much to read into this one. The model honestly lands bang on the underdog. Do Ho Choi, Korean Superboy, 56.47% win probability. But here's where the model pumps the brakes on itself. That score is low. He does receive a pretty low score from the model. There's just not a lot of difference from these guys. A dead dog tier is where we land. Yes, his odds are +150, and that's definitely enticing. But I'm inclined to agree with the caution here. The layoff is a real factor. That's multiple layoffs for this guy, multiple injuries he's trying to come back from. Choi is only 2 years removed from returning to action after years away already, and another significant layoff due to a knee injury creates, I don't know, legitimate uncertainty, right, in the cage. It's one thing when one guy steps away for 1 year, but multiple years off is definitely something I'm kind of concerned about here. And the model's already telling me he's a dead dog anyways. So why would I back him with my hard-earned money? Santos is the more active fighter right now, and activity does end up mattering. The model gives Choi a slight lean, and he probably will be the model prediction, and he'll be in my pick'em contest, right? I might as well take a shot in the pick'em contest. But when it goes to my bets and what I'm doing, it's not enough confidence to act on it. This one's sit back and watch. And now your main event for UFC Vegas 117, live from your favorite Apex Center. Now, Arnold Allen had put together one of the more impressive runs in the featherweight division at one point, a 10-fight win streak that eventually led him to fights with Movsar Evloev and Max Holloway, two of the better fighters in the division at the time. He ended up losing both those fights, unfortunately. He did get back in the win column against Giga Chikadze, but then he most recently dropped a decision loss to Gene Silva back in January. So he's 1-3 in his last 4, dating back to 2023. That 10-fight win streak feels like a long time ago right now. But with that being said, the numbers aren't completely falling apart on Arnold Allen. That was tricky to get out. He's never been finished in his entire professional MMA career. Never, not once. That's durability. That's the type of durability you want to see from a fighter. And he's never even been knocked down. So that chin is legit. Definitely considering the fights he's been in. So for a guy who's been in there with elite featherweights for some time, durability is actually real there. Now across from him, Melky, Costa, the Dalmatian. I like that nickname for him. He is on a 6-fight win streak and carrying serious momentum right now into this main event. Most recently, he handed Dan Ige his very first TKO loss back in February. Costa is trending up. Allen is trying to kind of stop that slide down. Trajectories are kind of pointed in opposite directions, but let's see what the model says. XR percentages. Costa's at 68%, Allen at 60%. Costa's got a slight edge there. It kind of reflects his recent form, for sure. The striking picture favors Costa as well. Allen lands 3.47 significant strikes per minute with a .43 differential. Efficient, but it's not high output, compared to Costa landing 4.38 significant strikes per minute with a positive 1.42 differential, absorbing less while putting out more. In a stand-up exchange, Costa is the cleaner fighter right now. Allen spends 74% of his time at distance. He's a striker who kind of prefers that space. Costa mixes it up at 50% at distance. Comfortable, but he closes the gap when needed, right? The grappling is a little closer than I think I'd expect. Both men have scored exactly 11 takedowns in the UFC. Similar accuracy ranges, 40 to 48. But Costa attempts at a slightly more aggressive rate when he needs to. Allen does hold a 72% takedown defense, though. Costa is at 59%. So if Allen avoids even being taken down and keep this on the feet, he has a path in controlling where the fight takes place, right? The model runs it, lands on Melky Costa, but just barely. Melky Costa, 54.05% win probability. And that number tells you everything, right? The model sees this as nearly a coin flip. And yes, he's currently plus 135, but the confidence from the model is low on him. That's what lands him as a dead dog tier for us. And that tier exists for a reason. That dog potentially will not bite. Costa is the model's prediction. Once again, he'll be my pick in my pickup contest that I'm in, but the bankroll stays away. We keep it intact for this one. There's not enough edge in either direction to justify action on a low confidence score. All right, I said I'd address it, so here we go. Ronda Rousey is fighting Gina Carano this weekend. It's happening this Saturday as well. Same weekend as the UFC. Oh my gosh. Which, by the way, if MVP really wanted to go toe-to-toe with the UFC, shouldn't they go toe-to-toe with the UFC? You know, go up against UFC 328, try to go against a numbered event? Or if you really just want all the eyeballs, why not pick next weekend when there's no UFC event? I don't understand these decisions. But hey, who am I? I'm not in charge of this stuff. All right, look, I'm not going to pretend this is exactly a highly competitive fight, MMA fight in 2026. Rousey hasn't fought since 2016, I believe. Let's look at this. When was her last fight? Yeah, 2016, December 30th, 2016. So almost 2017. Gina Carano hasn't fought since 2009. By the way, Gina Carano ended her career before Ronda Rousey even started her MMA career. But here we are. This is a real thing happening this weekend. This is for nostalgia purposes only, really. This is MVP, most valuable promotion. Is that what it stands for? I actually have no idea. This is MVP cashing in on two names that meant something during the sport's rise, during women's MMA rise, right? Is it fun? Maybe, sure. Are people going to watch? Absolutely. People are going to watch. I haven't decided if I'm going to watch yet. Should you bet it as if it's a very serious event? Please don't. I'll leave it there. I'll leave the betting tips there. But if I really had to squeeze something out of this, I mean, you're talking about two fighters with pretty much a decade plus of ring rust. Who has really been going at the gym? Who's really been the one training seriously beyond the fight announcement, right? Rousey's obviously the more, I guess, rounded fighter here, as, you know, she's got one of the most dangerous submission games, as we know. Obviously, we saw her armbar left and right when she first entered the UFC, and even prior to that in Strikeforce, right? Gina Carano, much more of a striker. Obviously, she never really developed much of a submission game. I don't think she really needed to. She was much, much earlier in the women's MMA days. But here's what I'll say, is the odds right now heavily favor Ronda Rousey. Minus 550, plus 400 on Gina Carano, heavy underdog. If I really had to put my American earned dollars on this fight, I gotta say, Gina Carano is kind of the way to go, right? Like, you're talking about Ronda Rousey being exposed as a horrible striker, and in all fairness, everyone looks great in the gym. So you can tell me Ronda Rousey's been working on her striking, but I doubt she's been working on her striking for 10 plus years. Gina Carano, she may not have the speed she used to have, but the potential for power is still there. We also got to remember this is at a higher weight class than Ronda used to fight at. Ronda used to fight at 135. Gina's at 145. So this is being fought at 145. Ronda's takedown reflexes and judo reflexes need to still be there. Most likely it is still there. But is it as fast as it used to be? Gina is the older fighter. I will acknowledge she is 44 years old. But as a plus 400 underdog, it's a 5-round fight. They're going to start standing. We're talking about two women who haven't fought in 10 plus years. I can't get over that. Most likely this is going to be a pretty sloppy fight. Most likely this isn't going to be the prettiest MMA fight you're going to watch. But if it's going to be an ugly one, give me the underdog. Give me plus 400. This isn't anything official. As I mentioned, I'm hoping I don't actually pull the trigger on a bet here. But if I had to say, I think Gina Carano's got a shot. She's got quite a size advantage as well. I mean, she's a slightly taller fighter, half an inch reach advantage, so not quite the reach. She's got the height. She might still have some power in her. I guess I'm rooting for Gina Carano if I had to pick. The rest of this fight card is absolutely just Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz and Mike Perry. What is the point of that? This is an MMA fight, right? I mean, what are the odds on this one? Nate Diaz is the underdog. Mike Perry is the favorite. I'm not breaking this down. What am I doing? Francis Ngannou versus Philippe Lins. I mean, minus 1,500 favorite for Francis Ngannou. Obviously, there's nothing worth betting there. Man, there's got to be something better to watch on Saturday. Trust me. All right, and that is the episode for the week. I was going to say that was your UFC Vegas 117 preview, but it was also a preview of how ridiculous MVP Promotions is. Now, small card. It's a lean card. It's a small thing. Most of the card is just a watch for me. There are 7 total fights modeled, though. Maybe there's a sneaky bet in there that we can throw in. But you got to check out fightingwithnumbers.com to get the rest of the fight report. So we're at 55, 30, and 4 on the year. The UFC takes next week off, as will I. I will enjoy a nice little breather from doing these breakdowns, doing the podcast, doing Substack, all that stuff. It's a nice break when we get it. We'll be back, though, refreshed, ready when the schedule picks back up. In the meantime, as I mentioned, head over to fightingwithnumbers.com. Check out the full season dashboard, model data, everything we've been building. More updates are coming eventually. I gotta work a couple months at what this looks like now in order to know what I'm missing or what I've done too much of. But as always, find me on social media, Twitter, X, Instagram, at the Robio. I'm going to stop mentioning TikTok because let's face it, I ain't opening that app. If you're enjoying the show, as I hope you are if you've made it this far into the episode, subscribe, leave a rating, share the episode with a fellow fight fan, share it with your parents. I hope you shared it with Mom on Mother's Day. I hope she appreciated it, and I hope she subscribed as well and hit that like button on YouTube. It goes a long way, Mom. Thanks. I appreciate all of you tuning in. Appreciate you every single week when you're just listening to me ramble here on these outros and the intros and the fight breakdowns. I'm making it all up as I go, but the numbers are real and that's what I'm giving you. So I hope you appreciate it. I appreciate you. So enjoy the fights. Enjoy next week off. Don't be looking for my episode next week because there won't be one. We'll talk next time.
Perfect.